The Alps is the largest mountain range in Europe and runs through France, Switzerland, Monaco, Italy, Liechtenstein, Austria, Germany, and Slovenia. The French Alps are home to the highest peak in Europe, Mont Blanc, at 4,807 meters or 15,771 feet. Andreas Lubitz suffered from depression, but that diagnosis could have ended his career as a pilot. He hid his condition from his employer until it took over and caused him to end 150 lives. This is Monsters. On March 24, 2015, a Germanwings flight had left Dusseldorf, Germany, and was headed to Barcelona, Spain. After the captain left the cabin to use the bathroom, the co-pilot was instructed to lower the altitude of the plane. Instead of just setting the new altitude in the plane's autopilot, he dropped the altitude to 100 feet, the lowest possible setting. He left it there for 3 seconds before changing the altitude to 49,000 feet, the maximum possible setting. Then he brought it back down to 35,000 feet. 2 minutes later, he was instructed to lower the plane's altitude further, and again he set the dial to 100 feet, this time leaving it there longer before stabilizing the plane at 25,000 feet. Shortly after, the captain entered the code at the cockpit door that rang a buzzer in the cockpit, and the co-pilot unlocked the door. The rest of the flight proceeded to Barcelona as planned. Andreas Lubitz was born on December 18, 1987 in Germany and took to aviation at a young age. He joined the LSC Westerwald Flight Club in Montabaur when he was 14 years old, where he got his glider license. When he graduated from high school, he was accepted to a pilot training program with Lufthansa, the company that owned Germanwings. He ended up being diagnosed with depression a few months into training and began taking medication. When this information was revealed at his annual medical exam, his flight clearance was revoked. 8 months later, Andreas's psychiatrist claimed that he was cured of depression, which allowed the doctors to clear him for flight. It was recommended that Andreas's medical clearance only be valid for 1 year at a time, though it's not clear if that was implemented. He was able to return to pilot training, which included a year of aviation theory before the students were able to advance to a hands-on pilot training program in Arizona in the United States. His advancement to flight training was delayed, though, because he lied on a form that was required by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration before he went to Arizona. When it asked if he had ever been diagnosed with any mental disorders, he checked no. Those documents were double-checked by an aviation doctor in Germany who caught the lie, something that could have gotten Andreas barred from ever holding a pilot's license. Instead, he was required to fill out a new form with the correct information and a report from his doctor claiming he was cleared to fly. In Arizona, he racked up flight hours on a simulator and in a Beechcraft Bonanza before returning to Germany to finish training on the commercial jets he'd be flying. He graduated from the program in 2013. After a short time working as a flight attendant, he was given a position as a co-pilot with Germanwings, a subsidiary of Lufthansa. In December of 2014, Andreas went back to the doctor complaining of insomnia and loss of vision. The doctors couldn't find anything wrong with his eyes, so they prescribed him antidepressants, which would have been grounds to revoke his medical clearance to fly. But due to privacy laws, the doctor couldn't report it to the airline. Andreas would have had to declare himself unfit to fly, but he didn't. He had been given a note from the doctor excusing him from work, but he never gave it to his employer. Andreas continued visiting various doctors claiming his vision was failing, though doctors couldn't find any issues with his eyes. He was again diagnosed with depression as well as psychosis. On March 10, 2015, the psychiatrist wrote him a note for indefinite sick leave as well as a referral for treatment at a psychiatric hospital for his psychosis. Andreas was put on more medication, but he still didn't report these developments to his employer. On March 22nd, Andreas wrote "Decision Sunday" and "BCN" on a piece of paper. BCN is the flight code for Barcelona. Under that, he wrote, "Find the inner will to work and continue to live, deal with stress and sleeplessness, let myself go." This note was later found crumpled up in his trash. Was he weighing his options for the future? Did he choose to let himself go? On March 24th, Andreas was the co-pilot on an early morning flight from Dusseldorf to Barcelona. During the flight, he set the altitude to 100 feet a couple of times before changing it back and completing the flight as usual. Some people believe he was testing the system. He wanted to know if the plane's computer would allow him to set the controls in a potentially dangerous manner. The plane seemed to allow it, and when they made the return trip, Andreas knew his plan would work. During the flight from Barcelona back to Dusseldorf, the captain stepped out of the cockpit to use the bathroom, and Andreas immediately set the altitude to 100 feet. That was the minimum altitude, but it was well below the French Alps that they were flying over. Due to increased security after 9/11, the pilot couldn't just open the cockpit door. He had to enter a code which would buzz Andreas, and he would have to unlock the door from inside the cockpit. Of course, Andreas didn't want the captain back in the cockpit, so he ignored the request. He also increased the speed to the maximum allowable. They were now rapidly descending into the side of the mountains. Of course, there's a backup code for the cockpit door. In the event that whoever's inside the cockpit is unconscious, someone can enter a special code. This will start a 15-second countdown before unlocking the door for 5 seconds. The problem is, during that 15-second countdown, anyone in the cockpit can cancel the request. So if someone was really unconscious, the door would be unlocked. But if a terrorist had gotten the code somehow, whoever was in the cockpit could keep the door locked. For the next few minutes, the captain tried the code, banged on the door, and it's believed he tried to pry the door open, but was unsuccessful because honestly, the door was made to not break open. At 10:41 a.m., Germanwings Flight 9525 crashed into the side of a mountain about 100 kilometers or 62 miles northwest of Nice, France. There were 144 passengers and 6 crew on board. They all died. Andreas Lubitz chose to take his own life and selfishly took 149 other people with him. Andreas's family continued to claim that he didn't intentionally crash the plane, suggesting that he fell unconscious and that the cockpit door lock malfunctioned, but the evidence says otherwise. Andreas's father claims that his son was not depressed, but his medical records prove otherwise. During the investigation after the crash, authorities found an iPad in Andreas's apartment, and the browser history for the week prior to the crash showed searches for medical treatments, suicide methods, and information about the safety measures on cockpit doors. After the black box and flight recorder were recovered, authorities learned that the speed alarm was manually disabled twice during the descent, making it very unlikely that Andreas was unconscious. Sometimes, things in life seem hopeless, but they'll get better. Committing suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Nobody is a monster for simply suffering from depression or any other mental illness. It's when the person decides to end the lives of 149 people that they become a monster. If you're the victim of domestic abuse, please reach out to someone for help. Talk to your local shelter or call the National Domestic Abuse Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can go to thehotline.org to chat with someone online. This website is set up so that at any time, hitting the escape key twice will take you to a Google search page. That way, if your abuser is nearby, you won't get caught seeking help. If you're having feelings of harming yourself or someone else, or even just need someone to talk to, please contact your local mental health facility, call 911, or call Mental Health America, who operate the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Thanks so much for letting me tell you this story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe on whatever platform you're on, hit like, rate us, or leave us a comment. You can also check out our other show, Somewhere Sinister, on YouTube or anywhere you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to support the show, check out our new merch at Teespring. The link is in the description. Thanks again, and be safe.